So today is going to be a good test to see whether or not my ridiculous amount of cycling away on camp has actually made a difference. And I'm going to do that through doing a build session, and it's similar to a ramp test, and I'm just going to basically self-test on the lactic monitor and see if the results are comparable to before I went away on camp. Not only that, I'm going to compare my results to Dresden, or just before Dresden, when I put in a decent block of training a month before competing my first Ironman 70.3 event. So I'm going to have some good comparisons so that I know roughly where I am and where to push and pull the different dials, and basically prepare properly a month out from my first race, which is Lanzarote 70.3. So today is just a 25 minute, 20 minute, 15 minute, 10 minute, 5 minute build. Going up, starting at about 315 watts all the way through to 380 by the end. So, I mean, I'll gauge it, but it's a good amount of work, maybe 75 minutes I think it is. And like I say, I'll be testing as I go, so I'll be able to monitor and make sure that I'm pushing it and keeping it in the right sort of zone. Now, in theory, I should be a fair bit better than I was in the preparation for Dresden. And this is because I've done a fair bit of cycling over the past month or two or three, and I've had a good block of training specific to 70.3 training. So it'll be interesting to see roughly where I'm at in comparison, but I mean, it's pretty obvious. Hopefully I should be a fair bit ahead of where I was. 42 hours or 44 hours of training over 2 weeks tends to give you a bit of a bump. It should be pretty obvious in that respect, but I mean, the proof will be in the pudding. At least then I'll get a realistic expectation of what I can expect to see in the race itself, and probably where I can pitch myself in that race in terms of my powers and things like that. So I'll be comparing power, heart rate and lactic, and taking like all of it into consideration in order to get a good picture of roughly where I'm at. I have done the 25 minutes and the 20 minutes, and I seem to be about 25 watts up or so, but I'll report back with a post-session analysis. It's all going well so far, it's not too hard. Heart rate's all under 130 BPM for, I think it was 330 watts last time round, so all's going well. Just gotta see it out, do the next 15, 10 and 5, and we've got about 350, 370, and then I'll decide on the last one. But yeah, so far so good. Face value of it, it looks pretty promising. It looks like I've probably improved maybe 20-25 watts or so in a month, which is kind of obvious and makes sense considering I've done the most volume of training that I've done for cycling specifically over the past 2 weeks on camp. So that 44 hours over 2 weeks, 22 hours a week, looks like it might have paid off, which is obviously always a good thing. That's what I'm aiming to do. So yeah, no, more cycling equals improvement, simple equation. But what I'll do is I'll do a bit more of a deeper dive and comparison into where this fits in comparison to last season and also pre-camp, and I mean, just hope that I can then translate that into a race performance. But yeah, so far so good. Okay, so back in front of the laptop, and before I go into the numbers and the actual increase in wattage and power and things like that, I just thought I'd go over why there was such an increase, or why I think there was such an increase, what I did to get that increase. Then I'll go into the numbers, and then I'll just talk about what I'm going to do going forward and in preparation for Lanzarote. So if we look at brass tacks and the real reason why I've had such an increase within 1 month, it's probably just because I've increased my cycling hours by 7 hours a week. So I've gone from 15 hours to 22 hours. And that's just quite simply because I wasn't running for the past 2 weeks, the weeks that I was on camp because of my injury. So I just supplemented the lack of run hours with cycling hours. The only reason that I can do this is 1, because I was relatively conditioned to begin with, but 2, also because cycling is a low impact sport with a lower risk of injury. Within those cycling hours, I did also do what worked very well for me last season, but I only did that for a very short period of time in the lead up to my first 70.3 event. So having done that for the past few months anyway, I was relatively well conditioned to do 2 hard sessions a week. One of which was a race-specific session, and the other one was one that shifts my physiology the way that it needs to be shifted. And that's very specific to me. So it was quite important that I was able to do both of those and execute them correctly in order to really bump on my physiology quickly. It is worth noting that to do 2 hard sessions a week, I have to have a certain amount of volume within that week anyway, so it won't work for everyone. Like I said, I'm doing 15 to 22 hours of cycling a week. So when you proportion that up and split it into 2 harder sessions, they aren't a massive percentage of that total weekly volume. So it's just worth bearing that in mind if you're thinking, oh, I'll just do 2 sessions a week. It doesn't quite work like that. Whilst I thought that this was going to work really well, I wasn't quite prepared for how much my threshold or overall kind of powers were going to increase over that time in such a short period of time as well. So after looking over the numbers from my January testing, it looks as though it's about a 20 watt increase if I'm looking at the difference or the comparison between the same powers and heart rates and also lactics. So I think it's like a little bit sketchy to just look at one or the other or just a couple of them. It's good to have a wholesome view of each of the different kind of, I guess, measures so that you can have a well-rounded overview of what's actually going on under the hood. If I'm just looking at heart rate, then it might not be quite as accurate because lots of different things can affect heart rate. As I've mentioned in a previous video, if the cooling is a little bit better, then you can't necessarily, or your heart rate's a little bit lower, or if you're a bit warmer inside and you're not able to cool yourself, then it'll be a bit higher. So it's a bit of that. So if you're looking at heart rate in conjunction with lactic levels, then obviously you can get a much better picture of what's really going on. So I've looked back at my data from pre-Commonwealth Games and also pre-Dresden, which I thought I was in very good shape for both of them. And it looks like I'm in quite good shape in comparison to both of those, and about I'm definitely fitter than I was in both of those instances, but the bigger difference that I've seen is the one in comparison to January, just a month ago. And that's mental. It's a conservative 20 watt increase in comparison to my January testing, which is really satisfying. And of course bodes really well for racing. Like, obviously I need to put that down in a race, but things are trending in the right direction. There's no 2 ways about it. So what will I be doing going forward? And it's a pretty simple one for me. My cycling is in a very good place. It's probably hit my target for where I want to be at in order to race. I'll obviously keep training it, keep trying to improve it, but this focus will now shift onto running so that I can get back from this injury which I've been struggling with for the past couple of weeks and start building up that volume, building up that conditioning to be able to run well at the back of a 70.3. And obviously cycling well or having a better threshold or better tempo or LT1, LT2, whatever you want to call it, will bode better for me in a race anyway, because hopefully I can conserve a little bit more energy before I get onto the run to be able to deliver a better run. However, I'm still only going to be able to do what I'm physically capable of doing whilst running. If that running isn't very good or if it's not in a very good place, there is a limitation there. But hopefully I can build back up, I can build that conditioning, and I'll be in a good place come 4 weeks' time. I've got plenty of time. 4 weeks is more than enough time to get into good shape. And I'm not unfit because I've still been doing 30 hours of training or so a week. So yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. I'm really excited to see like how my running progresses now and if I can get back from this injury in good shape and good health. As per usual, if you've gotten to this point in the video, please do hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and follow along the journey for what will be my first full pro triathlon season in long course racing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.